I'm Homero Galicia, and today we're here to hear a story from Amada Flores, a wonderful lady that I've known for many years, who's built a wonderful company called AIM Construction. We want to learn about Amada and her business. So if I can begin, Amada, if you could tell us, well, your middle initial is S, and so I'd like to, if you tell us about your name and where were you born and where you went to school, if you please.
The S stands for skin. That was my mother's maiden last name. My grandfather, my mother's father was Jewish. My mother's mother and her family came directly from Spain to Brownsville, Texas, and then to San Antonio, and then to El Paso. I'm a sixth generation El Pasoan, and have lived here all my life. I was born in Juarez when my mother married my father, Alfonso Flores. He lived in Juarez, came from a very prominent family, and she was married to him, and I was brought back to the United States very, very young, registered immediately as a U.S. citizen because my mother was living in Mexico with a visa. So automatically under Section 1955, I think, I qualified to become an American citizen with a certificate of citizenship, which is very different from being naturalized. I'm categorized as an American citizen born in a foreign country. My father's family has also been in Juarez since 1887. And on my mother's side, we have a family plot at Concordia, and I tell people that I'm a sixth generation El Paso, and I said I can prove it. I've got 4 grandmothers buried at Concordia.
Wow.
My grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, and great-great-great-grandmother are all buried in the first plot as you drive up into Concordia off of the Copia Street off-ramp, where the historical marker is at.
Is that the Flores family?
That's my mother's family, which their last name was Cabaldon.
Okay.
On my mother's side. That's the family plot. My mother was Stella Skin Cabaldon, with a B. And my father's name was Flores Herrera.
Okay.
And my father was also on my father's side. I'm only a fifth generation Juarense and sixth generation El Paso. Wow. But many members of my family now, my nephews and nieces and great nephews and great nieces, are now 8th and 9th generations.
Wow.
And we still all live here in El Paso. We leave, they all come back. I never wanted to leave El Paso. I love El Paso. El Paso is a very unique city. It's home. It's been home for 6 generations to my family.
So what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in the Lower Valley. I grew up on Geiger Street and then moved on to Delta Street. I went to Cooley Grade School. And from there, when I went into the 7th grade, I went to Burgess. We were bused to Burgess back in 1957, something like that. But I always wanted to go to El Paso High. My grandfather graduated from El Paso High. My mother graduated from El Paso High. My brother graduated from El Paso High, as you well know. And so I wanted to go to El Paso High, particularly because I was a tennis player. I was playing tennis. In El Paso High, I always had such a great tennis team. So I decided I was going to ask Mr. Estes, who used to be the assistant principal, if he'd let me go. So my brother took me to him. And he said, I know, you're an El Paso High family and you have to come here. And I said, that's right.
Well, your brother was already going to El Paso High?
My brother had graduated from El Paso.
Yeah, he graduated with me.
He graduated with you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And how did he get to El Paso High then?
He was, when we were living on Geiger, they still hadn't built Burgess.
Right, okay.
Burgess was not built until 1955.
Right.
So my brother had to go to Jefferson. And as you probably recall, Jefferson was still pretty rowdy in those days.
Yeah.
So he didn't like it. So he wanted to go to El Paso High. And because my mother had been to El Paso High, and her father before her had been to El Paso High. So he said, no, I need to go to El Paso High. So they went and talked to Mr. Estes, and my mother did, and he said, okay, well, he can come to El Paso High as long as he behaves himself and is a good boy. So he went to El Paso High and behaved himself and was a good boy. Those were great years for me. El Paso High was such a great school to go to. It still is, I understand. I'm very involved in a lot of their activities and in building that new marquee and everything. I love the school, love the atmosphere, love the teachers. You know, some of the teachers, like Miss Kelly, had been there 100 years.
I remember Miss Kelly.
And it was just so much tradition, so much school spirit, and we were all just real happy.
So you commuted.
I commuted to El Paso High.
And your father still had work in Juarez, still had business in Juarez?
My father had business in Juarez, one of the oldest chains of drugstores in Juarez, had a dry goods store, and they had some barber shops and some dry cleaning establishments. As a matter of fact, I started running our family drugstores in 1970 and kept them until 1992, 93, when I realized how bad the situation was beginning to get in Juarez. This war is not new. This has been going on for 20 years, if not a little bit longer, and just decided that it was time to get rid of the business.
What was the name of the pharmacy? And
Farmacias Flores.
And how many did you have?
When we started, we had 2. When I closed up, we had 6.
And you managed those?
Managed those, and I worked here in El Paso too. I was an accountant for, I think something like 10 years for Tommy and Dan O'Leary, who at the time owned Bonded Realty, Bonded Developers, who in turn now is Bonded Developers, and their son is now Desert View Construction, Randy O'Leary. Randy and I were good friends. I worked for them for 10 years, and at the same time ran my drugstores.
Wow. After you finished from high school, in what years? In the
63.
60s?
I graduated class of 63.
Then what did you do?
I went to UTEP, but then dropped out for a while because it was very hard for me to do all the things that I was trying to do, like run these drugstores, and my father had some other businesses, and he had developed a severe heart condition. So I went to Juarez to try to help out, and at the same time held a job here. While I was going to college, I used to work for the Empire Club and Gillespie Steakhouse for the Gillespies.
On Montana Street?
On Montana for Leon and Tommy Gillespie, and I was there for about 6 years.
Wow.
A lot of fun. Really enjoyed
in
that
management?
job.
Were you?
I was their bookkeeper. I worked under their accountant. So then, when I went to work for the Gillespies, I changed majors. I used to be a history major. Changed majors and went into business. So that's how I became an accountant. And I worked as an accountant until 1982, when the O'Learys closed up Bonded Enterprises and went strictly to development, and then started building homes again through Desert View Construction.
Now, your mother, did she work?
Yes. Yes, my mother worked. When we came back to El Paso, she worked for the American Furniture. She was a real go-getter. My mother was an orphan. Her father died. He went back to Hungary looking for his parents. When my mother was still very young, back like about 1932, something like that. And my mother lived with her aunts and was very, very unhappy because they wanted her to marry one of her cousins, and she said absolutely not. So she went to St. Patrick's Cathedral and asked the priest there, who was a priest by the name of Father Simi, if she could place her somewhere. And he said, well, the only place I can place you is in an orphanage. So she was raised at the Good Shepherd home in Isleta. And she remained there till she was 18 years old. And she used to be the chauffeur for the nuns. Okay. She learned to drive when she was 12. And she used to knit. Gosh, she used to knit beautifully. She used to talk to you and knit away, you know. And then after she married my father, she helped him with the stores. And then they divorced, and she came back and started working for the American Furniture Company as secretary to the comptroller, the manager of the stock control. And then he got sick, and she started running the stock control, and then became the controller. She was there for, gosh, many, many years, and then she left and took her test went to school and took her test to become a insurance salesperson. And then she worked for Aetna for many, many years. In 1963, my mother and I started college together, and she graduated before I did.
Wow.
She went ahead and got her master's and everything. Then she went to work at UTEP, and she was this, assistant to Judy Solis, who was the dean of students, I think.
Right. Yes.
And my mother was there till, 1984. They had to ask her to please leave. It was time. She just loved
Let me
her
ask you,
job, loved being there.
working with your dad, he taught you about business. What did you learn from your father?
Not much from my father.
Really?
I learned from my mother. My father was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Okay? He was a junior. He had a lot of character, and he was a very, very charming person and all. But he was having a lot of fun. He was young and he was wealthy, and they used to say that my father would go to three different dances in one night and wear 3 different tuxedos. He just had a ball. But he was smart, very, very smart man. And I learned a lot from my uncle, who was an architect. And I don't mean to get off the subject, but I wonder, where did I get this drive to be in construction? And I wonder if I just didn't get it from my uncle or something. But no, my mother was such a go-getter. I mean, when she first divorced my father, we went through a year or two when my mother we were heart-strapped. It was my brother and myself, and my mother, the maid, the dog, the bird. But my mother worked hard. She was a go-getter, and she was not going to let anything break her down.
How old were you at that time?
6 or 7.
Oh, early.
Very early, yeah. And when we were little, my mother had to work on Saturdays, and my brother and I used to have to clean house and make soup. I hate soup. I hate cocido because we had to make it every Saturday. We had to make soup and sopa. So, we had our chores. We had to do chores. My brother started working when he was 12 at Hollebeck riding stables out there in the east side, which is now, I think, right where George Dieter's at.
I used to
out then.
I used to ride horses every Sunday at Hollebeck.
That's where he used to work. Brushing them, cleaning out the stalls and everything. Wow. I started working when I was 15, and my mother had gone to work for the Jewish Community Center. And so I became a counselor for Camp Shemayim. I was a day counselor at the day camp for the little Jewish kids out at Arduinos, at the building where they're at now. Their new restaurant is out there. What is it? Cross Landing, I think, something like that. Land's Ending. That's where we used to have Camp Shemayim.
Wow, the crossings.
It was funny that I should go back to those roots also, to my Jewish roots.
Were you raised with Jewish principles?
I was much later when I was like 14, 15. And I started, going to Camp Shemayim. And then on Saturdays, I would teach tumbling and other things there for the kids on Saturday. When they went to study Torah study and everything, I would be there and helping them learn how to tumble and play and things like that. So I got very interested in Judaism. A lot of, I'm not officially Jewish. I was baptized. But I don't know, maybe it's something in my heart that, calls to me. Because I always wear my Star of David, which I'm very proud of. And I'm very proud of my Jewish roots.
And your father, you kept close relationships with your father?
Yes. Very close with my grandmother, with my father. My mother always never spoke ill of my dad. My dad never spoke ill of my mother. They were very respectful to each other. Father's Day, don't forget to take your dad a gift. I've got your dad a gift for Christmas. They had a very they respected each other a whole lot.
Were you raised Hispanic, Mexican?
Actually, I was raised more both. My mother insisted that we learn, my brother and I learned Spanish very well. When I was in high school, I hung around a lot with the Jewish kids and with the white kids. And now, all my friends, a lot of them are Hispanic, of course, and of course a lot of the same kids that I went to school with. And all the girls, the Hispanic girls make fun of me. Oh, you didn't used to speak Spanish? Yes, I did. I spoke Spanish. No, you didn't. So they really tease me about it. But I'm still very close to both my Jewish friends, my Hispanic friends. I'm very close to them. Of course, it's more of a melting pot now.
So
But Homer, when we were in school, there was a lot of difference.
yeah.
The white kids and the Jewish kids definitely could not date anybody that wasn't Jewish. And the white girls could not date the Mexican boys. The Mexican girls didn't want to date the white boys. But there was, that. At that time, I think El Paso was 60% white and 40% Hispanic.
What's interesting too, in that period of time, my friends were the Hispanic males and the Jewish kids. They were your mother worked for the Blogruns. They were friends of mine, and the kids were.
My mother worked for the Blogruns. When she worked at the American, it was J.B. Blogrun. And then she worked for Mr. Eddie at the Union Furniture.
Right.
When she became the manager of the stock control, she used to manage the stock control for the Union, the Welch, the Imperial, and the American.
Wow.
All those
So
belonged
where
to
did
the
you
Blogruns.
then start thinking about business and for yourself?
I think this is before I even, got involved with the drugstores. I think when I was working for the O'Learys in the Gillespies, I used to like the fact that they, if they wanted to go home, they could go home, and I couldn't. The fact that, they could innovate other ideas, that they could decide, I want to do this, and they could do it. And I thought, gosh, that's nice. I'd like to be able to do that. Of course, when I inherited these drugstores, I was able to do this. I went from 2 drugstores that were almost bankrupt, and when we finally sold out and sold part of them and closed part of them, we had 6 of the best drugstores in Juarez.
And that was under your leadership. You grew the pharmacies then in Mexico. So was operating business in Mexico different than what you were experiencing working for business here?
Yes, it was. It was very, very different in the fact that here we had to follow all these rules. In Mexico, it was, if you have the money, you can operate beautifully. If you don't have it, sorry. Everybody was like this with their hand out. We used to have everybody come in every month for something, for money. It was a terrible way of operating.
Asking for money to protect the store?
Well, you didn't call it protection per se, but they would say, well, I can, like for instance, we used to have a set of books that we used to have to keep control of all, to control all controlled items, any of the barbiturates and amphetamines and all that. And then we would have to have it inspected like every month. And we had to record everything. And then one of the agents from the Secretaría de Salubridad would come in and say, well, if you want to pass this test, it'll cost you so much. And then you would get Secofi, which was all the weights and measures. Well, your scales are off a little bit, but if you want me to give you the stamp, it'll cost you so much. If you want to operate and not have to pay all these taxes, it's going to cost you so much.
So would you put that into operating costs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have it as operating costs. I had to spend a lot of time giving dinners and attending dinners for these guys and these women. There's a very, very prominent woman right now in the government in Juarez who has one of the largest, she runs one of the largest utilities in Juarez. And back in 86, between 84 and 86, she worked for what they used to call Registro Federal de Automóviles. And if you drove a car with Texas plates and you had a business order, she used to just come and snatch it. And then I said, hey, I'm an American citizen and a Mexican citizen both. No, you can't be both. I said, well, I am. I'm sorry. The Mexican Constitution grants me, the right to be a Mexican, and the American Constitution grants me the right to be an American. I said, so I have dual citizenship. But she used to come over and ask me for $100 a month because my cars had Texas plates.
Mira.
And this went on and on and on, and then we started having a lot of break-ins. They started holding up the stores, and I thought, and by this time, I had already started AIM construction. And this was, as I started learning, this was taking up too much time. And what is the old saying in Spanish? Al ojo del amo engorda el caballo. Either I was going to do one or I was going to do the other. And I just didn't want to do the one in Juarez anymore because it was getting so bad. It was getting so corrupt that it just, I had a partner. I had a silent partner, all my employees. And I used to tell them, if you're going to steal from me decently. Let me make the peso and you make the 50 cents. Not the other way around, so I can continue to operate. But I mean, at that time, of course, we didn't have the controls that we have now with computers and everything, inventory control. We had to do all the control by hand. We used to have these cards, and we used to do control. We used to check every slip that went out against the cards. Very hard. It was hard work. And very, very few people that you could really trust. By this time, my father had a daughter, so I had a sister to help me, and she was great. She's still great. And one day I just walked in and I told her, I said, you know what? I'm leaving. You can keep the drugstores, you can come with me. I said, but I'm leaving. Been there, done that, I don't want to do it anymore.
And you started your business while you were still managing the pharmacies.
I was working for the O'Learys and running the drugstores.
Wow.
And then I was running the drugstores and decided that, no, I didn't want to do that anymore, although I learned a lot. I learned a lot about managing people. How to deal with people. You have to respect people. You can't possibly run a business and degrade people and try to work with them like the old patrones used to with their foot on their neck. You can't do that. People have to be treated with respect and with dignity. And if you don't, you've lost the battle. You are what your employees make you.
So when you started your business, you already had all this management experience and accounting experience. Well, why did you get into construction?
Because I was tired of being an accountant too. Okay. I was tired of having to balance those books every month and put out financial statements and seeing what the bosses made and I didn't make. And so I thought, no, I've got to be able to do something better than this. I like this. I like construction. At the time, Bonded had bonded homes under Cliff Anthus and Dan O'Leary. Then they had bonded developers, bonded insurance, bonded property management. And Randy O'Leary and I used to run the property management together. And we used to have lots of properties, like 254 properties. Wow. So all the time we were ordering carpet, we were painting, we were doing carpentry work, new doors, this one needed a roof, repairs, all this minor repair. So I thought, when Bonded closed up and they said, well, we're closing up, I thought, I can do that. Well, I've been doing it, I can do that. So I opened up what I called Busy Bee Maintenance. That was my first company. It was called Busy Bee Maintenance and Repair. The logo was a little bee. And so I started doing maintenance and repair. And golly, what a surprise. It wasn't easy. It was hard. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the types of paints. I didn't know the type of flooring. I didn't know anything about roofing, nothing. But I got a remodeler's dictionary and started looking up. I'd study that constantly, learning the terminology and looking at the pictures and associating the pictures with the words. And I liked it. I really liked it. And I found that I really had a knack for it. And so I decided, well, I'm going to expand this. And by this time, I had gone to work. Incident, in between there, I bought the property management with another gentleman by the name of Don Donsworth. We bought the property management from the O'Learys. By this time, it was a much smaller one. And so we went into property management, and that was going very well. Don had bought Bonded Realty from the O'Learys, but we had lost most of the agents because the agents that were there were very, very loved the O'Learys. I mean, Bonded was a great company to work for. It really was. Tommy was awesome, and Dan to me is one of the few geniuses that I really know. And so we decided that I should go in for an SBA loan. So I got myself an SBA loan for $200,000,
In what year?
1984.
Wow.
And the bank called me, or a good friend of mine, his name was Bill Thomas, who was vice president of the Cielo Vista Bank, and he said, "Somehow what's going on with your bank account, your escrow?" And I said, "Why?" I said, "We should have about $50,000. He says, "You have like $50. I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Don, we're taking all the money." So he took the money just about the time that they were getting ready to fund the SBA loan. And
So they took the money from you.
well, no. I had two options. He left. He absconded with the money, and I never heard from him again until much later. And so here I have my $200,000 loan. I'm thinking that we're going to have a real estate company because that was the plan, and the property management and the maintenance. And I'm stuck with a $4,000 a month payment to the SBA and no income except my little maintenance company. I couldn't advertise in the newspaper because he had run up the rentals, because he had run up a huge bill at what used to be the MPC Newspaper Printing Corporation at the time, and they would let me advertise unless I paid the bill. It was like $18,000. And here we had bought all this equipment, a huge telephone system, desks, chairs, when you reach high in the sky, oh gosh, I'm going to do this. I was 40 years old, 42. And I tried and tried. At one time I was selling firewood in the winter because I didn't have enough business. We would buy the firewood from Mexico and we would bring it in. We had a place there on Durazno, on Rosa Street, where we had a spur. They would unload the wood from Juarez, and then we would sell it to 11 o'clock at night. We would be delivering in our trucks because we didn't have any business in the winter. And so here I was, well, what am I going to do? Gosh, I don't have any business. The SBA foreclosed on me.
Oh my gosh.
I had a beautiful house in Ruidoso, which was probably worth $150,000. They took it and auctioned it for $42,000. I had a little building at 3504 Gateway East. They auctioned it. I had a second lien on my house for $25,000. I still owed it. And so here I was with nothing. And I thought, okay. A good friend of mine at the bank, Hector Almeida, said, "I'll let you buy your trucks back."
Hector.
Hector's a great guy.
Yeah.
God, he was great. He helped me so much. He and Angie White.
Yes.
From the banks. They said, "We'll open an account." And he said, "I'll let you buy your trucks back at the auction. And you have your radios and everything." He says, "I'll help you get started back on your feet." So I did. So about this time, somebody told me that there was some work at Fort Bliss. So I said, "I want to go to Fort Bliss."
And your company was still the Busy Bee.
It was still, no. By this time, I had changed the name to AIM Construction because the Busy Bee was it was just not construction enough. You know what I mean? It was like little maintenance. It was like saying the little girls construction or something. So I changed it to AIM Construction.
Why AIM?
Aim for quality. Our logo has the arrow and it says
Right.
AIM for quality. I designed that car, incidentally. I think it's very nice. And so I went to Fort Bliss, and oh God, I was the only woman. Lucky for me, one of the project managers there was also a woman. Her name is Linda Rice. And Linda was probably close to 6 feet tall. I mean, big lady. And she would get you by the collar and she'd say, "You're going to do what I say to these guys." She was a really very impressive lady and very knowledgeable. And so I said, "I want to be able to bid on these projects and all." And she said, "Okay." So I started bidding. Didn't get any of the projects. So she said, "So you're a contractor, huh?" One day. And I said, "Yes." And she says, "No, you're not." She said, "But I'm going to make you a contractor." She said, "I'm going to teach you." And she got me under her wing. She and another lady that used to work for Urban, who's passed away, LaVon Whitson, who then later became the chief estimator for Samcor. And she said, we're going to make you a contractor. I want to teach you how to read plans, and we're just going to teach you how to put the work together. And I started working at Fort Bliss doing quarters, remodeling kitchens. We used to have to be in it Monday and out by Friday at 4 o'clock. And I mean, cabinets, floors, fire suppression systems, appliances, everything had to be in there in 4.5 days. Then I worked out at the Sergeant Major's Academy in the Sergeant Major's area for their soldiers out there, and did bathrooms. So I learned how to do bathrooms and kitchens. That was my expertise. And then she said, well, you know what you need to do now? And I said, no, what? She says, you need to do roofs. I said, really about roofing? And she says, well, you're going to learn. So I did those 4-story buildings. And I said, Linda, I don't know anything about roofs. She says, well, you're going to learn. So I learned how to do those big barracks buildings. They were the 4-ply built-ups with the aggregate. And we used to have to have the rocks delivered to us and washed and everything, and put up on those buildings, and move the air movers, these huge air movers, another word for the air conditioners, and did that for like 3 or 4 years. I must have roofed probably 100,000 squares at Fort Bliss.
When you started in construction, how many women were in construction?
None. Well, I lie. Anna Gill was building homes, home builders. But as contractors, there was none.
How many Hispanics were in construction at that time that had significant business?
Little contractors, very few. Very few. And of the large ones, it was only Samcor probably and Urban.
Samcor had already begun then by that time.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because they were together, Samcor and Urban.
Samcor and Urban were together, and then they broke off and became Samcor and Urban.
So you were already in your 40s when you started really getting into construction.
Yes. I was in my 40s. I was 42, 44.
So here you are, a Hispanic woman, starting a construction business.
A Hispanic, mature woman starting a new business. Golly, if it hadn't been for Linda and for LaVon, I don't know if I would have made it. I really have to give them credit for helping me so much.
So they were your mentors.
They were my mentors. Mentors, as far as drive goes, was probably my mother. Like I've always told everybody, Tommy O'Leary. Tommy O'Leary's, gosh, she's such a tough lady. She really is. And so I had 4 women that were really, really great mentors.
And who helped you with the finances? Who helped you to access capital especially after the SBA
Well,
issue?
when I was foreclosed, they auctioned off all my stuff. And then after I had paid off a bunch of money, including my house in Ruidoso and my building, I got a bill for $44,000. And of course I was an accountant. And so I went back, they had a meeting, and their lawyers were there, and I went all about my little lonesome self. And so they told me, well, you still owe us $44,000. I said, that's fine. I said, but you need to do something for me. And they said, guess what? And I said, well, you need to give me an accounting of everything you auctioned, from my trucks to the last paperclip. They said, well, we don't have an inventory. I said, then how do you know what I owe you?
Wow.
How do you know what I owe you? You sold my little trailer that we had for the wood. You sold everything, and I don't know what you sold it for. I said, all I know is that you had a person there auctioning things with a little cash box, putting all the money in there. I said, I want to see the receipts, and I want them to be in numerical order. And I want them to see how much it is that you actually sold, because I don't know. And so they said, well, we don't have one. I said, well, then you have a problem, don't you? I said, because I'm not going to pay you $44,000 until you give me an accounting of all the stuff that you sold. Never heard from him again.
Wow.
Ever. And so I was virtually penniless. But like I said, boy, I had some great men that still work for me. To this day, they still work for me. Some of them 24 years later, they still work for me.
Where did you learn your negotiating skills?
I think that I just learned them myself. I mean, it just came from within or something. I don't really know. I can't say from this person or that person. I don't know.
So besides the financial issue with the SBA loan, what other challenges did you face as you started? You started your company. Did you pretty much start at Fort Bliss?
The bigger work, yeah, the more significant work. When I first started, the first job that we got was for $500. It was, oh, we got a job for $500. And it was great, you know. And now, you know, we just got a big job with one of the big companies here in El Paso for $500,000. We got a $500,000 job. Oh, that's nice. You know what I mean? The difference, you know, as time goes, we've had so much success and so many large jobs, you know, that, I mean, I'm very happy because we've got it, you know, but I still do a lot of residential. I love to do residential. People, you're dealing with people's most prized possession, you know, their homes. And it's nice to go in and when they say, well, God, my house really needs to have some work done to it. Can you do anything? And when we leave and the house is gorgeous, you know, the look on people's faces is payment enough. You know what I mean? I mean, of course we work for money, but it makes me feel good to be able to make these people happy about their homes.
How large a staff do you have? Larger crew?
In my office right now we have 8 people. 8 people. We need to hire 2 more estimators. Yeah.
And the other work you subcontract?
Everything else we subcontract. That was something that Linda Rice taught me. She told me, she says, how many employees do you have? And I said, 25 or so. And she says, and how many trucks do you have? 6 or 7. And I said, there's always one broken down, so I have a full-time mechanic. She says, are you out of your mind? She says, no. None of the big contractors have workers on their staff. They sub everything out. She said, so you need to fire everybody. I said, I can't fire all my employees. She says, yes, you can, and then hire them back as subcontractors. They'll make more money themselves and they'll be happier. And that turned out to be true. Most of the people that I let go as employees, you know, salaried employees, came back as my subcontractors. And I said, some of them are still working for me. I have a tile guy that works for me that's been with me for 24 years. My foreman has been with me for 21 years. He's wonderful. He was a little yard boy when he came to work for me, 20 years old. He used to do lawns and little things like that. And now he can do anything. Trustworthy. He's worse than a husband. He goes right into my purse, pulls out my credit cards and gets my gasoline and stuff. But he's that trustworthy.
So how did you build that kind of rapport with your employees?
I've always known that you have to pull the reins and let them go. Pull the reins and let them go. You know, and I also learned that you can't wear 2 hats. You can't be your employees' buddies. You can't be buddies and be their boss. You just can't do it. What did he say? Familiarity breeds contempt. It's true. When you see, you know, oh wow, she does this and she can buy that and she's got this car and this, you know, it breeds contempt. Like, why don't I have this? Well, golly, because you haven't worked like I have for 40 years, you know, or 44 years. But you have to be a boss or you have to be a buddy. You can't be both. And I learned that very early, that I couldn't do that. And I'm their boss. I give them a nice Christmas party, and I give bonuses because I got used to that when in Juarez we had to give aguinaldos. I give them Christmas bonuses, which very few people do. I'm very strict though, and I tell them do as I say, not as I do. You know, you have to do what I'm telling you, not what I'm doing. And then another old saying that I use a lot is that you lead by example. I can't expect people to be at work early if I'm not at work early. I can't expect people to work late if I don't work late. You have to lead by example.
You don't look to me like a person who leads by intimidation.
No, I don't.
How do you lead?
It's when people start to get fresh or rowdy, I go, just a second, just a second. You don't have to be here if you don't want to. There's the door. It opens both ways, in and out. You don't like it here? There's the door. Just don't let it catch you on the butt when you move out. And that's it. You know, you don't have to work for me. There's lots of other places for you to work for me. And if you came back, you came back for a reason.
Do you have a set of rules that you...
Oh, yes. Yes,
Like
absolutely.
what are they like?
For instance, I don't allow any drinking inside the doors of my business. I will not let you come into my business even on Fridays to cash your check if you smell of alcohol. If you tell me you're going to be at a job at such and such a time, I expect you there at that time. You don't drink on my jobs. You clean the premises before you leave each and every day. You're working in somebody's home or somebody else's property, you respect it. Do you know that I have never had an incidence of theft? And we've worked in some gorgeous houses where people have left thousands of dollars of jewelry right there, their purses, and they've come back and nothing has ever been missed. And I just tell them, things are not yours. So you want to work for me, you're going to respect people's homes. And I've never had a claim for liability, except one time. And it wasn't my fault. But that's because I have a set of rules. You barricade. If there's danger of somebody falling, then you put up your caution tape. We hold safety meetings. And you have a set of rules that I have that you're going to follow. And I'm going to tell you something, there's only one boss here, and that's me. So you're going to do what I tell you to do, not what you want to do as long as you're on my payroll. Your time that I'm paying you is my time. So you're going to do what I ask you to do.
So how did you learn all these things?
Experiences that I've gone through. My contract, at the end of the contract, I've got 2 pages that say notes. This is interesting. And it's, tells you the allowances for things that we're putting into your house. And then what we will do, we will not move computers, we will not do this, we will not do that, we will do this, we will not do that. One day I gave it to a gentleman, he says, what is all this? And I said, notes, you be sure to read them. So he calls me up one night and he said, where on earth did you come up with all these notes? And then I said, to be real honest with you, he says, those are my life's experiences, bad ones and good ones. He says, that's what I told my wife. These notes are things that she has actually lived. And that's, this is what I call really part of my Bible. This is my Exodus. When I leave a job, you guys better live by this Exodus, I tell my employees.
So before you take a job, the client, the customer knows the expectations of what you're going to do and how you're going to leave.
I'm going to handle it and everything. When I give an estimate, I don't care if it's this little or 20 pages long. It's all very, very well itemized. It's a scope of work. And I go from demolition all the way to finishes. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, walls, ceilings, floors, everything is broken down. And God, he said, God, this is so thorough. And I said, yeah, but that's because we're going to be good friends when we're through. I said, there's no gray areas. You know what you're getting from me. You know what you're paying for.
So you do residential, you do commercial,
and
you do government contracting still?
Government contracts. The government contracts usually come from the Corps or, from inside the government. And those it's already a scope of work. Many times very vague. Very, very vague. Sometimes, you wonder, well, what are they talking about?
So how big a business are you now?
Well, we're probably close to the $5 million mark.
And what's your bonding capacity now? Do you need bonding capacity?
Oh, yes. Yes. We're probably right about $2 million. I'm fighting with my insurance person, my insurance agent, who's wonderful. But hey, I need more bonding, Mike. I need more bonding. I'm getting these projects. Like right now, I have 2 projects that are going to take up $1 million, just 2 of them. Housing Authority has got a bunch of projects that are coming up that will require another couple of $1 million. So really, I need to have probably $4 to $5 million worth of bonding to keep up with the projects that I want to do.
But you're able to accommodate that.
As you complete more jobs successfully, your bonding capacity increases. You know, the trust in your company increases.
And you're wanting to grow still.
Yes. Yes, at my 66 years of age, I want to grow. Darn right, I want to be 66 next week. A week from today, I think.
Well, tell me about your growth plans.
Well, I've got all my paperwork ready to go to the SBA so I can become an 8A contractor. And hopefully with the help of my CPA and my lawyers and everything, and of course from the man up above, hopefully we should have an 8A designation before the end of the year, which would, you know, I'm also, I'm HUB certified, I'm woman-owned certified, minority business-owned certified, and SBA certified. Golly, that'll open all these doors for us. Plus the 8A, of course, you know, is set aside. Some of this work you don't even have to bid. And there's good profit in it. You know, it's not as much work in putting together these projects like it is right now for some of these, oh my God, all the addendums and the changes. They just take up a lot of time.
So how have you made money?
How do I make money? By making good contracts, by putting together good estimates and staying on top of the job at all times and seeing that things are done in accordance to the plan that you have, to the completion plan.
So you oversee the construction, you oversee the finances, you oversee the personnel, you oversee all aspects of your business?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have somebody?
I brought in my nephew, who is also an accountant, and he was working for Schwab, and he wasn't real happy with that, so I brought him in, and he's learning, but he's in a learning stage. And he's a very bright man. He's 37 years old, but has no experience in construction. And like he told me the other day, because I told him, I said, you know, we've got to charge your ever-readies. I said, you got to move. And he said, well, he says, I can't be like you. He says, I can see what you're saying, but he says, I can see what the price should be, but I want to know how I arrive at it. And he's right. You know, he's saying, I need to measure how wide this wall is, how tall it is, and how much I charge per square foot. He says, I got to learn all these things. He says, I want to learn it completely, not piecemeal.
So is he part of your transition plan?
Yes, absolutely. And then I've got another estimator that I just recently hired who's very good. I lost a wonderful person that used to work for me. His name is Mario Dixon Jr. He wanted to go on his own, and you know, Mario's very talented, a very smart man, and I miss him terribly because aside from you know, making me money and making money for himself, of course, he was a good friend. A lot of fun to be with. Really miss him.
So tell me about the physical toll all this work takes on you. You still work 16 hours a day?
About, I think,
Wow.
I don't know if we've been one of the people that calls me at night and say, you still there? Yeah, I work till 8 o'clock. Physical toll, I don't think it takes a physical toll on me anymore. I'm used to it. If I were to stay at home, I'd probably have Alzheimer's now, you know, sitting in front of the TV or not doing anything, piddling in my garden. I mean, I'd die. And I tell people, you're going to have to carry me feet first out of this office. I just cannot imagine myself when we're not working. I can't imagine it. I'd go crazy this 3-day weekend. I'm just like, if I go on vacation, like my cell phone is always right here. And, you know, I mean, that's just me. And I know that it's very hard for Alex. I know it was hard for Mario. I know it's hard for Richard, you know, because I'm very, very reluctant to let go, to designate, you know, work. And this is bad. This is one of the big faults that I have, you know, relegation of work. It's very difficult for me. I want to know everything that's going on. The periods, the question marks, everything. The 2s, the 3s, 2 by 2. I want to know everything. And I can't. If I'm going to grow, I have to let go of some of this stuff if I want to grow.
Let me ask you, you've seen a lot of businesses start, a lot of businesses fall.
Oh, yeah.
What What secret do you think is it that people haven't learned, that you learned?
People haven't learned, then people will get a nice big job and make a lot of money and go and spend it all. And you can't do that. You know, you've got to have money to grow and to expand and to be able to finance your projects without having to go borrow. Of course, the banks only lend you money when you don't need it. But a lot of people have take to factoring, you know, selling their invoices. And my God, that's 5 to 7% of the profit that you're making. But you see these guys that get a couple of big projects and all of a sudden they're driving these big old macho trucks and everything, you know. You can't do that. Or buying these huge homes in Ruidoso or Cloudcroft or taking these expensive vacations. That money is not yours. That company belongs to your company. It's not your money. I pay myself wages. You know, I'm on a salary. At the end of the year, depending on whether I'm going to pay taxes to the government on it or whether I'm going to pay taxes, which is better, my accountant will tell me, well, go ahead and give yourself a $25,000 bonus or something. But not until the end of the year. In the meantime, I live on my wages. And I think that's a key factor that people will spend all their money that they make. They think, I got $100,000.
So tell me about your journey, you know, building this very stable business. It's a stable business now.
Very stable.
How would you describe this journey?
Fun. It's been fun. It's been a fun journey. It's very challenging. Of course, you know, when I started accounting, I knew accounting. But when you start something you don't know anything about it, it's very, very challenging. It's learning. And you have to really dedicate yourself to it. And you have to like what you're doing. If you don't like what you're doing, if you don't really have a passion for it, if you don't really love it, then it becomes drudgery. Then it's a job instead of being fun. You have to have fun doing what you do. And a lot of people are in it for the money. You can't be in it just for the money. You have to be in it for the love of it, a passion in it, you know, planning. Where am I going to go from here?
Where do these principles come from?
I think you learn them as you go through the process of growth. You learn them, and then one day you wake up in the morning and you say, I gotta go to work. You gotta have a passion for this. You know, God, I love this. When you just wake up because you're being successful, because you're giving work to people, because you're creating something that is going to make people happy. You know, and there's nothing that I really enjoy more than hearing somebody tell me, "Thank you, God, you did a great job," or "I have to recommend you to so and so." I'm doing some work right now for an elderly couple through the VA. He's a Purple Heart, and my gosh, the lady is just so happy that I've gotten 3 or 4 recommendations. $200,000 worth of work just from that job. You know, and what I do too, I call people every day. I don't have time to always go to all their jobs, but I get a report from everybody. I call all my subs. Where are you? What did you do? And everything. And Valentin, who's my right hand, who's my little yard boy, reports to me on everything. And I mean, he writes notes and everything. And I call in and I tell them, you know, we did this and we did that, but we couldn't do this and we couldn't do that. And people appreciate it. They appreciate the attention coming from whoever hits that company. You make them feel like they matter, that their job matters to you. You have to let people know they're important. All of us want to be important. All of us want to feel a little bit of importance, that we count, that you care.
So what values that you got from your mother still carry through?
Finish the job. Don't get spooked or scared by the size of anything. If somebody's already done it. If you're going to do $1 million job, somebody's already doing $100 million. Don't be afraid of things. You know, it can't be bigger than life. That is probably one of the things, not to be afraid. honesty. You have to be honest. You can't go around lying to people, to your customers, to your employees, to anybody. You can't lie to yourself. You shouldn't lie to yourself. You're probably the least person in the world that you need to lie to, because if you lie to yourself, your perspective is all warped.
So what are the big challenges you face today?
Having two good estimators, because I have so much work that if you go to my desk, it's covered with paper, and I'm so lucky to have two wonderful secretaries. My secretary, Araceli's great. You know, she's been very ill at one point, and we had to send her to the hospital because she's always on time in the mornings. She works late. She's punctual, and she really helps. She really helps me a lot.
So M Construction, is it a corporation?
It's a corporation. Mm-hmm.
And do you have what kind of external team do you have? Banker, lawyer?
Oh, I have a wonderful lawyer. My lawyer is Susan Forbes. And she's a barracuda. Boy, she's tough. Susan's tough. My CPA is Geraldine Montoya. Honest. I tell Geraldine, you're too honest. And she says, that's me. You know, I mean, she tells it like it is. She says, this is what you're going to pay, and you're going to pay it tomorrow. You know, this is what you owe. She got me through an audit beautifully. I was, the IRS audited my subcontractors. Beautiful. Of course, all my stuff is right. I don't cheat. I don't try to cheat the government. I don't try to cheat the state, anybody. I mean, I owe it. If I owe it, I have to pay it. And prolonging it, the agony just prolongs the bill. It makes it bigger, with the interest and penalties. And my bankers, I bank at Compass Bank, but I have another very good banker who just right now went to Bank of the West, Arlene Carroll. She's worked with me a lot, in properties and things like that I've acquired.
You also have a real estate license.
Yes, inactive. I've had a real estate license since 1972.
Wow.
And I think I've sold one house. But it's an inactive license. I enjoy having it. I used to work with the top real estate people in this city at the time.
So would you say at all that being a Hispanic woman has ever been a hindrance?
Back in the 80s it was. Now it's getting better, but it's still the same story. I'll go out to a job site with Mario, and I used to go to Fort Bliss and everything, or even with Alex now. And hello, how are you? This is Alex, and I'm so and so, and they'll address him. They'll address either Alex or Mario or whoever male is with me. For some reason, people still have it in their heads that women contractor. I don't think so. And they'll talk to them. They'll say, well, what about this? I'll say, well, this is this, this and this. And then they'll ask him another question. He wants to know, well, it's this and this and this. Then finally, well, who are you? I'm the person who's taught him. It changes then. Oh, okay, sorry, we didn't realize this. Look at my card. It tells you who I am, But it's still, a very macho business. And I think there's only 5 or 6 of us women that are reasonably successful here. Some of them, their brothers really own the companies. Others, their fathers or their husbands. I don't know how many truly legitimate, really woman-owned there are. I know I'm probably one of maybe 2 or 3. The rest, it's their husbands, brothers, or
That's right.
Or fathers. I think I'm probably.
And how do you feel about that when people do that?
When they don't ask me questions?
No. When people use their wives as the president of the company, but it's really their company.
Well, I don't think they're being altogether legitimate or honest. Stand by yourself, guy. Don't stand behind your wife's skirts, because she could get her woman-owned certification, and it's another foot in the door. These certifications that the government is coming up with, the women-owned is going to be almost as important as the veterans, as the 8A. They're giving women the recognition that we deserve in construction. Because for many years we were just like a zero to the left, instead of a zero to the right.
So you're at a $5 million range now. In 2 years, where do you see yourself?
Probably 10. If I can get my SBA, my 8A certification, I should probably be doing 10. If I can find 2 really good estimators, I should be there.
So looking at your history, and I appreciate you going through your history. How would you describe your life?
Very fulfilling. I have a niece. Her husband is a policeman, and she works with the post office in Las Cruces. She lives here in El Paso. And she came over to my house, and she was swimming, and she says, "Tia, what do you do besides work?" I said, well, I've traveled all over the world. I said, I enjoy music tremendously. I said, but really, she says, you have such a beautiful garden and everything, and you don't take advantage of it. I said, well, no, I wish I had time. I said, but you have to understand that what I love is my work. I love my work. I love my job. I love what I'm doing.
So what is your legacy?
Golly. That maybe I have helped people realize some of their dreams, some of my subcontractors, for instance. That I have made them better contractors. My legacy is that maybe my nephews, nieces will learn that hard work does get it done. That hard work is the only way to really climb up to the stars. That you can do it. You can do anything. Anything that you can imagine, you can do.
So what do you think needs to be said that we haven't covered in looking at your story, the story of your business, who you are and how you built that? What do we need to say that we haven't covered?
That more women need to be challenged. More women need to go out there and decide, this is what I want to do, and do it. Not be afraid. Women are very meticulous. We are very clean. We don't have tunnel vision the way men do, because men do have tunnel vision. Men see just like this. They don't see to the sides. We need to get away, as women, we need to get away from tunnel vision. We need to not be intimidated by male-dominated industries or jobs or whatever. We can do anything we want to set our minds to be, our goals. We women need to forget that we bear children. That's tough. Men can't bear children, we can. And that in itself is, gosh, humongous. We can do anything we want. It takes a little bit of courage. It takes creativity. It takes vision. You need to look to the future. You need to focus on a goal. And you can't be taken away from fulfilling your goals. You can't, if you want to do something, you can't just say, well, I'm going to be a wife. Husbands are husbands, but yet they also have time for their business and for everything that they do. We as women need to give ourselves time also. We also, women who are housemakers and have a vision, a goal, or whatever, they need to be able to tell their husbands, you need to help me like I help you. This is a partnership. And it's an equal partnership. Not 10% me and 90% you. as far as doing what you want. And 90% I do all the work and you don't do it, 10% of it. You know, it's got to be equal, 50-50.
You know, you appreciate your time to tell us your story, and I know you have just got out of having to overcome some pneumonia.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
And how do you keep up with all that you have to do and still take care of your health?
When I went to the doctor, it was 3 weeks ago, yesterday. I went to the doctor on Monday rather, and I couldn't breathe. And when I went to the doctor, she says, "You have walking pneumonia." She says, "You have to go home." They give me shots and everything. And I said, "Go home." She says, "Go home." She says, "I know you can't, but you don't want to, but go home and stay home 2 days." I can't do it. I can't. When I had my stents and my pacemaker installed, I went to the hospital. I told the hospital, "It has to be on a Thursday." And he says, "Why?" I said, "Because I can only be gone from work on Friday." So they did my pacemaker, my stents on Thursdays. I was back at work on Monday or Tuesday.
Wow.
You know, that's just me. I got pneumonia and I took off Monday afternoon and I was at work Tuesday. I'm still kind of hoarse.
Wow.
But I don't know what it is. You know, I just like what I do. I enjoy what I do.
And you have a loyal team?
Very.
You've
Very. I don't think I could have gotten where I'm at without some of the people that have worked for me before and work for me now. Some of the people that I had, like for instance, the secretary, her name is Terry Candelaria, worked for me for 15 years. She's now a school teacher. And it took her 10 years to get her teaching degree, and she worked for me, and she was great. Mario Dixon was great. I mean, I just could go on and on and on and on with people who have really, really helped me so much.
So you've developed people.
Yes, and that's also very satisfying. You know, when you see that some of the people that you helped or developed or pushed have done well too.
So business is a career?
Business is a career. Yeah, you can't decide to go to business and have it be really part-time. You have to decide what you're going to do with it. If it's going to be part-time, then don't get too involved in it because it's not going to succeed.
Are you where you plan to be?
Am I where I plan to be?
Had
No.
you planned this?
Pardon me?
Had you planned this?
To be here?
In terms of the business growth, is this what you had planned?
No, I planned for more. I'm behind.
Okay.
I should have been 8A 5 years ago.
Okay.
I'm behind. But then, Homer, this comes from not knowing how to relegate work. This is a big, big flaw in my business sense, okay? I should be able to relegate work. I should be able to have confidence in the team that I have developed. This shows lack of confidence on my part in the people that work for me. That's not right because I really do have confidence in them. This is a flaw. This is a big flaw in my character that I think. You know, that why haven't I been able to do this? You know, it's not right.
Yeah, but I see most of the businesses right in your same shoes.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I guess because when you love something a whole lot, you don't want to share it. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, you love your wife, you don't want to share her. You love your husband, you don't want to share him. I think it's very difficult to let go of something that you've nurtured. You know, when your son or your daughter get married, it hurts for them to leave. You know what I mean? You don't want to.
So you see your business as part of you.
Oh, absolutely.
And to delegate kind of.
Takes a chunk of me.
Okay.
It's like, let me see what piece do I not need right now? You know, it's hard. It's very hard.
But you've enjoyed it.
Yes, I'd do it again. I'd do it again. I tell everybody, gosh, I wish I was 50 years old right now and knew what I know. Of course, that's, you know, that can't ever happen. But God, if I'd known when I was 50 what I know now, geez, I could have done so much.
Well, you've certainly done a lot. You certainly have. You've grown a business. Amazing story the way you have managed your father's businesses in Juarez.
That was very tough. That was very, very, very tough.
Did you running business in Mexico? Did it prepare you to run business here in the U.S.?
Yes, definitely. I mean, because you had to learn to dedicate a lot of time to it, to be there all the time. I mean, you have to be like a hawk, in Mexico. It's so sad, but this has been going on since the dawn of Mexico. I mean, people have always, that's the way that they've done business, with mordidas, and you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. I mean, very, very few ethics in the way that they conduct themselves. And that's sad because Mexico's such a wealthy, beautiful country that, we can't even go down there for anything. I mean, I'd love to be able to drive the way we used to when I was little to Mexico, to Guadalajara, Mexico City, La Provincia, we used to drive down to San Miguel de Allende and all these beautiful places. And now you can't. Shoot, you don't even want to drive down there, period, because if you have a nice, decent car, they're going to take it from you. But it really prepared me. It really prepared me. It also taught me how to pick my employees a little bit better. I went through so many employees. In those drugstores, we had 35 employees. And it was 35 different partners, per se.
Wow.
And it really, really taught me how to pick them, the questions to ask. When somebody's honest, they always look you right in the face, right in the eye. When they avert your eyes, you be careful. It really teaches you how to weed out. I learned that a whole lot.
Wow. That's pretty. So that's just a skill you picked up.
Yeah. When I was, when I had the drugstores, I worked at Bonded. And when I started working for Dan O'Leary, he came in, I cleaned up his books because he had terrible accountant bookkeepers. And one day he came into my office and he said, I had the drugstores, I was running them. And he said, God, he says, you cleaned up my books beautifully and you've done great work for me. He says, but can't you get here by 8 o'clock? And I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, because I have a business that I run in Juarez and I don't get home till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I get up at 8. And he understood that.
When I was growing up, one of the things that we were kind of grew up with is to work twice as hard as the other person, almost doing the double job.
You have to.
Is that something you grew up with?
Absolutely. You have to do double time. Absolutely.
How was that message given to you?
It's something you just learn. I probably learned a lot of it from Tommy and Dan, from the Gillespies. My God, the Empire Club. Those people would be at the office at 7 o'clock having breakfast, and they'd work till 3 o'clock, and then they'd go home and sleep. 2 o'clock. They'd actually put their pajamas on and everything, go to sleep. And then they'd be back at 7 o'clock at night and work till 2 o'clock in the morning. They were always there. Always. And greeting their customers. Leon would check on everything himself.
I remember.
He was an awesome man. He worked till he was, 78?
Wow.
78, 79.
Wow. Well, it's just a beautiful story that you have, and I really
you.
appreciate that. And
Thank you.
I've learned a lot. I think you have a lot to share. And so I'm deeply pleased that you took the time to let us hear your story.
Like I say, you can do anything that comes to your imagination. Anything. They say we only use 10% of your brain, of our brains. Anything. If you can imagine it, you can do it. And it just takes time. You can't grow overnight. Trees don't grow overnight. It takes time. For trees to grow, it takes time for character to grow, for businesses to grow, for your business acumen, for your knowledge. It's not something you learn overnight. You're going to be successful, you need to give yourself time.
Wow. Well, you've certainly done it right.
I don't know, I hope so.
Well, I want to thank you very much.
You bet. Nice to be here.
Thank you.